above all, a chief of staff really exists to create leverage for the principal. In the tech space, that's typically a founder, co-founder, or a CEO. And leverage can look like a lot of different things, like onboarding a new executive or sitting in on a meeting and taking notes and following up with the executive. You know, that's leverage at its core. And I think it requires a lot of trust between a chief of staff and their principal. And I think to do the job well, communication is super important. Relationship building is super important. And someone that wants to be in a more service type of role, because a chief of staff, you get to be, you have a seat at the big table, but you aren't necessarily the person enacting or write decisions. So that's the leverage piece. Another way that I like to describe the role is an air traffic controller. We see a lot of activity. We're not necessarily responsible for the work, but a chief of staff acting as an air traffic controller, you can help guide and or steer people in certain directions, which is super valuable. And I think another way that we can add leverage to the CEO. So at Ntropy, I was their first chief of staff. I think employee number 10. Ntropy is an early stage fintech company, globally remote. I think we were across 8 different time zones when I joined the company. And at that stage, the chief of staff, my role was that leverage and connective tissue, but also much more building things from 0 to 1. For example, building out the onboarding process, which was super important for a remote company, building our recruitment engine. How do we want to talk about ourselves publicly? What do we want to include in our job descriptions? What are we going to pay people on the West Coast versus in London? So all of these kind of foundational things that are necessary for a business to scale and grow, I was much more directly hands-on involved in. Whereas at the Farmer's Dog, a Series D, 550 plus company, it was founded in 2014, so almost 10 years old. A lot of the foundational pieces already existed and were working well. So the difference there was, as a chief of staff, I was much more responsible for the process working effectively. So instead of being directly involved in the headcount planning, I was involved with making sure we got the headcount planning output, and then that was ready and included in the strategic plan for the next year. So much more like managing the process versus directly hands-on work.